All right, so what we talked about today in class is correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficient means the tightness of the graph or something that we could put our line of best fit to. So what we see is on this graph, we have a 1.0. A 1.0 means a perfectly related line. It means there's no variance in any of it whatsoever. It's a perfect relation. So we see a set of graphs here. So we see that this is a negative 1.0 because it's the exact same as the last one. We put a line that's going to go through it, and it's going to be exactly matched up to where it would be. We see that the dots do not fall around it at all, and we see that it goes in the negative direction. So then as we get a little bit more spread out, we see this is a 0.8, and we see that the dots are a little bit more outside of it, not much. So we see it's still pretty close to that one, but not exactly. Then we get to a 0.4. That 0.4 is showing that it's getting a lot more spread out. Not many dots are hitting on the line, and we see that it's still going in a negative direction. A positive 0.8, we see that closeness to the line. It goes in a positive direction, and it's really close. That 0.4 goes in a positive direction, but it's much more spread out. Now on the 0 side, we see that no matter where we put a line through, we're not going to get any line to show that there's a relationship. So that is going to be what is known as a scatter plot, or something where we just throw a bunch of paintballs at a wall and we don't know where it's going to land. There's no reason for it. So with the 0, there's absolutely no relationship to it. So as we get through here, okay, we start to see this. We talk about sorting from strongest to weakest. Well, since we have negatives and positives, the strongness is based on how close it gets to those ones and how close it gets to those zeros. So the closer and closer it gets to 1, we see the tightness. As closer it gets to 0, we see it more spread out. Same thing on the other side. We see it closer to 1, the closer it is versus the closer it gets to 0 is not. So some graphs that we look for is maybe possibly putting a line into it. So we see that this line here, is a 0.7 because it's pretty close. Those aren't too bad. It could go a little lower, could go all right, but 7 at the highest. We see this 0.4 because there's a lot of outliers here. We see this as a 0.8, 0.9 because that stuff is really, really close. And that 0.5 it's kind of spread out, but not too bad. I would say this would be more of possibly like a 0.7 also. Those two I think are pretty close together. Okay, and that's all we did for class.